How do you like my version of a donkey, a jackass, and a shark, right? Could you imagine something like being that stubborn and being like a shark going after everything? That's why I used that photo. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. And sorry if my phone goes off all the time, but I got to keep listening to it. Hey, I just wanted to check in with everybody and kind of give you an update of what's going on. And of course, you've seen me over the last few days in the news and stuff, and it's going nuts. Could you imagine that? Right, Chris, a jackass shark, right? Anyway, the sharks are circling, and so I want to kind of give you some feedback and stuff, and tell you about what's been going on. Hey, Charles, how's it going? Bob, Evan, how's it going? Joe Fox, how's it going? Bill, how's it going? And just kind of, let you know what's going on and what's happening around the country. And I know people have a lot of questions, and people are kind of upset about, what's going on with the Supreme Court and everything that's going on, and what's going on in Atlanta and what's going on in Georgia and everything else like that. And so I just kind of I'm going to take some questions, try to clear it up and stuff. But I want to play a video first for you, because a lot of, the media and stuff, it's just kind of nutsola, but they're really not putting out what's really being accomplished at the White House. So bear with me. I just want to share with you a message, if I might, from President Trump. And while it's going on, shout out in the messages, tell me where you're tuning in from, and then when the president's done, I'll be right back right after this.
I have really good news. Today, our nation has achieved a medical miracle. We have delivered a safe and effective vaccine in just 9 months. This is one of the greatest scientific accomplishments in history. It will save millions of lives and soon end the pandemic once and for all. I am thrilled to report that the FDA has authorized the Pfizer vaccine. We have given Pfizer and other companies a great deal of money, hoping this would be the outcome. And it was. On behalf of the American people, I'd like to thank all of the brilliant scientists, technicians, doctors, and workers who made this all possible. Pfizer and Moderna have announced their vaccine is approximately 95% effective, far exceeding expectations. These vaccines are also very safe. American citizens participated in clinical trials that were far larger than normal and had no serious side effects. The dedicated and independent experts at the FDA meticulously studied the results of the trials, and it has now passed the gold standard of safety. Through Operation Warp Speed, my administration provided a total of $14 billion to accelerate vaccine development and to manufacture all of the top candidates in advance. This included a nearly $2 billion investment in Pfizer to produce 100 million doses of their vaccine, with an option to produce 500 million additional doses. And I'm proud to say that we have made sure that this vaccine will be free for all Americans. Through our partnership with FedEx and UPS, we have already begun shipping the vaccine to every state and zip code in the country. The first vaccine will be administered in less than 24 hours. The governors decide where the vaccines will go in their state and who will get them first. We want our senior citizens, healthcare workers, and first responders to be first in line. This will quickly and dramatically reduce deaths and hospitalizations. When the China virus invaded our shores, I promised that we would produce a vaccine in record time before the end of the year. They said it couldn't be done, but with today's announcement, we have now achieved that goal. The United States is the first nation in the world to produce a verifiably safe and effective vaccine. Today's achievement is a reminder of America's unlimited potential when we have the will and the courage to pursue ambitious goals. As I've said from the beginning, a vaccine will vanquish the virus and return life back to normal. The pandemic may have begun in China, but we are ending it right here in America. Operation Warp Speed is the greatest medical manufacturing endeavor in American history. We are deeply grateful to every person who has worked round the clock on this monumental national project to save lives. Thank you all for your tremendous gifts to humanity. God bless you, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. Thank you.
So there you go, folks. A message from President Trump. Sometimes people don't get to see these. The Facebook and everything else on socialist media tends to block these things. As a matter of fact, one of the stories took off here this morning, and there was like 1,800 comments. And if any of you know me, you know I try really hard when somebody asks a question on my social media to, at minimum, like it or make sure I answer a question. You see my broadcast, or try to do things, or try to go back and let you know I appreciate you being here. And damned if Twitter, right? Even this morning, I'm talking to the legal team, and I'm going through this, and I'm giving everybody a unique thank you, right? Like, right on, thank you very much, working hard at it and everything else, and putting in the hashtags. And Twitter banned me again for answering all these, and I had to kind of go through a fight, but I got back on. It's kind of futile. So let me throw a few things at you, just so you understand. I guess it can be very confusing when you keep on hearing the Supreme Court threw it out or decided not to hear it. And I was seeing somebody online today, and he said the Supreme Court voted against Trump, and it's not like that at all. And you just have to understand the process. And so let me give you an example. And one example I always use is like the television series most people have watched called The Forensic Files, right? And you go back and you look at some of this stuff, and they're basically tracking down or trying to close cold case files, murders that have been committed and never got solved, right? And hey, Shirley and Bob and Gene and everybody else. And people just sometimes don't understand the process. So I'll put it into like rule of law, etc., so you understand how it works, okay? So let's say there was a murder. There's a crime. Now, somebody maybe right away, hey, Michael, somebody maybe might not be able to prove, hey, Nicola from the UK, how you doing? Might not be able to prove who did that crime at that time, but there was still a crime. That's how law works, right? And so even though a crime was committed, maybe 20 years, they finally get enough information. They finally find a new way to test DNA that couldn't be tested before, these old case files. And then all of a sudden, you can go back in and petition the court with brand new evidence and get your process done. And that's kind of how the court system works, period. And so when you see certain things where they say that the Supreme Court rejected it, I got to explain to you, well, the answer means that item, that one thing, versus the whole things, right? Hey, Stephanie, how you doing? Versus this whole thing. And so when you go to the Supreme Court, whether you're going to Supreme Court in the state, right? Or you're going into the Supreme Court, nationally. Hey, Julia. And hey, Sushi. I go, so what, Sushi? Anyway, and so you present your case. And what people keep on saying is, well, the Supreme Court ruled against it. And that's not really true. And I'll give you just a prime example, because I was debating somebody this online. They were talking about what happened in Wisconsin this evening, that there was a setback for the Trump administration, and the Wisconsin Supreme Court rejected it, right? And so understand maybe a little bit of how this works. The Supreme Court judge that answered for the state. Now, the only petition was petitioning to get the right to see the ballots and to do a recount. That's it. See the ballots and do a recount. Now, what you have to understand as a United States citizen, those ballots in their physical form and in their digital form are actually your property. Did you know that? They belong to the citizens of the United States of America. and subsequently to the states as well. And by law, those physical ballots and those digital ballots, the scans of them, have to be available for audit and kept on file for 22 months. 22 months. Well, we're really only 40 some odd days into this whole fiasco as it is. It's literally open for 22 months. Now everybody's kind of scrambling for, they talk about the electorate and whatever. And some of these things and all that was being petitioned in Wisconsin, and I'll use this as a prime example. No offense to anybody in Wisconsin. No offense to anybody who is here. And if you're a Democrat, I don't care. Right? I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care who you pray to. We gather here because we have common interest in stuff, right? And if you vote Democrat, that's your choice. That's called free will, right? I don't want everybody to think like me, not at all. We can't have great debates that way. So let's look at Wisconsin. And so today, Wisconsin said they kind of threw it out, right? All that was going on was a petition to be able to get a recount, a particular type of audit recount. And those ballots and those digital scans are the property of the taxpayers, literally, right? Now, what was being petitioned is, look, there's just some questions. We're trying to figure it all out. Of course, I'm paraphrasing, right? Paraphrasing. And we're trying to figure it all out. We would like to go in and do a recount. And the court rejected that in Wisconsin, right? They rejected on the grounds where you don't really have evidence. You audit to get evidence. You audit to confirm it. Until you scientifically confirm it, it is technically just a theory. And so you need to look at the evidence to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt so you can prosecute it. And so the Wisconsin Supreme Court's holding this up. Now, ready? Here is I'm gonna give you the question. Ready? I'm gonna give you the question asked to the court, paraphrasing it, keeping it simple, and then I'm gonna give you the court's response. The female judge who responded, right, and went on the record. And so one side saying we got to look at the ballots. We need to do a recount. And because there's some question and so many irregularities, we think what we need to do is just hold on a minute. Just hold on a minute. And will you not certify the election results at the moment? And will you please just allow these records, which belong to the public, will you allow us to look at them and verify them? Now, that's the question. Please understand, simplified, that's the question. Here is the answer by the judge on the record. This would be, paraphrasing again, this is the most horrific racist thing to ever ask. You are trying to be racist and disenfranchise people's votes that are already there. Now, the judge wasn't actually having a proceeding to decide if something was racist, because even to be racist, you would have to prove that was the intent. But the court's answer to say, hey, just pump a minute, hold up a minute, and let this be looked at was, this is racist. Now, is that an answer? Right? And this particular judge is a heavily opposing party supported judge. And so that's kind of what goes on in these things, and you have to understand how that goes. And every time there's new evidence can be presented, and it's a brand new thing. And so all these kind of things are fought individually and fought on nuances. And so don't get discouraged because you hear that the Supreme Court rejected it. And in a way, as much as I hate to say it, I understand why the Supreme Court of the United States says, hey, we can't rule on this. Did the Supreme Court reject the suit led by the state of Texas? No, there's actually a technicality. What they said was the state of Texas doesn't have a dog in this fight. And therefore, we can't really comment on it. So we're just going to pass. They also said, we'll hear you if you want to present it, but we just can't rule on it. And let me tell you why. And I'm just going to use an example, right? Let's say, and I want to give you a really good example because this applies. Do you remember back in the 70s when we were all kids, or beginning of the 60s, and you remember the Indian guy in the canoe? And he was going and he had his feather in his hair, and Indian guy, and he comes out and he starts saying trash in the water. And then he looks up and you see the one tear rolling down his cheek. Y'all remember that commercial? That was the kickoff of the quote unquote environmental revolution, right? And at that time, everybody thought that gas and automobiles, right, were hurting the environment, and that we needed to change and get rid of unleaded gas. Well, now on the hindsight, we know that unleaded gas, getting rid of it didn't make that much of a difference, right? But at that time, since California really pushed that, right? That's where we got all the different grades of gasoline. And everybody kind of just followed suit because California pioneered the way. So every state followed suit. Well, what that did is that completely drove through the roof the price of refining gasoline, because it had to be all these different grades and standard instead of just a one very simple refining. And there's some economists that say if we could get rid of all the regulation standards, gas would go back to 50 cents a gallon, because the difference is all those taxes got laid over it. Well, that happened. And it got pushed over the whole country, started by one state. And now all of us pay into that kiddie pool of taxes and all those requirements, when history shows and time shows and study shows that, yeah, getting rid of lead in any instance is good, but it didn't make that big of an impact. And we really should just refine at one level and put out one grade, and our gas prices will drop. But now there's too much money in the tax base that governments won't let it go. States won't let it go, right? That's extra tax. And remember, every time you go to your car and you're filling it, half of that is tax, right? So you have to understand. You just have to understand that. So I use that as an example where one state's decision and lead led to it being applied all the over states. And so now I'm going to apply it today to this last Supreme Court ruling. If California said tomorrow that every car driven must be a battery-powered car, period. And they made that law for California, which they could pass, and they say they're going to do it, and it's on the books. Okay? So it means in California, no more combustible engines, right? Just battery-powered cars. And so let's say California did that. And then California turns around, goes to the Supreme Court, and sues every other state and says, because you're not battery-powered cars, you're hurting our state. We're affected by it. That gives me the right to sue. Now, of course, you would be upset. I'd be upset. I don't want another state telling me what to do. And so that's just a very simplified explanation, right, of why one state working on another state and it does this layover creates a problem. Now, it was based on constitutional law, and these states are not following their constitutional law, etc. And I have just really simplified it to kind of give you a way to understand it. And many times that Supreme Court stuff is just, how is it petitioned? How is it written? Because, a lot of these states change their rules, 40 days out from the election and never went through the legal process to do it, never had their state legislatures ratify it, technically rendering it illegal. That's really what the big thing is. But when you understand the courts, they're not only looking at this decision. When it's adjudicated by a court, it becomes by default the law, meaning other court can use it. And so if this was done in the wrong way, it would open up so many things that we could be sued for. California could be suing us because, let's say, because they use pesticides in Iowa for growing corn, and Californians, we just don't like pesticides, and they may blow across the country, and so you have to stop. That's kind of what happened. I just want you to understand that of what's going on. So when you see these ups and downs in the Supreme Court, they're all individual battles. They're all highly focused, and they all have to be right on. And sometimes that process of getting it right on takes a while. And so people have been debating, as I brought up, hey, we can tell what were truly mail-in ballots. First time in history that all these ballots, California alone dumped 24 million of them out to their citizenry, right? And that these were just dumped. Technically, they have to be requested, but even that went away. And so these things should be able to challenge. And that's why I said from a kinematic artifact detection method, we can tell, was it really mailed? And if it wasn't mailed, can it even count as a mail-in ballot? That's what it is. But you hear people saying, well, the Supreme Court already shot these down and already shot it down. Well, yeah, they shot down Fred Purple's suit at the Supreme Court, or this particular suit for this thing, but not this. And so they come in waves, and they work constantly in waves. You got to get it right. Now, I'm going to let you do something on my screen here, right? I'm going to show some of the comments that have been going on yeah, and you're right. How are states being held accountable for not following national election laws? That's it, right? But I want to show a few things to you. I want you to comment on the screen because I'm going to ask you a question. So in all of this court battling that's been going on since the day after the election, right? And let's take Sidney Powell, great warrior for this country. It is no longer about the president. It's just about making sure that votes count and votes are done legally, period. That affects all of us, right? And personally, you have to have accountability. And why would you want to win an election that your party had to cheat in, either side, right? I wouldn't, but that's me. So all of these hours, all of these court battles, legal teams going 20 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week. My phone blows up nonstop. Everybody's working on it. How much time, if you had to guess, how much time even somebody at the top position, I'm using this as an example, Sydney, is actually right there focused in it where the court, right, is listening to her case. Okay, now we've had 40 some odd days, right? Let's say they're in the court system, they're going to be 16 hours in the day because they can run long. Do your math, right? Let's just for shit and giggles say there could be possibly 600 potential hours, right? Would that be right? 16 a day, 40, 41, 64, 326, 70. So there'd be, we'll call it 750 potential arguable hours, right? That could have been argued in those windows. Tell me in comments, right? How much time do you think somebody at the top of that legal pyramid has been able to literally present these cases? Pop it on your screen. Let's look at them. I don't expect anybody to get it right, but I just want to know what you think about, out of 700 plausible hours of potential arguing that could have been done at the court levels where they're listening to one of these attorneys, one of the top attorneys. How much time do you think they've actually got to present, right? And so I'll just throw up a few. Kimberly says maybe 30% of that time can be used for arguing. Mike says 6 hours and 45 minutes. How'd you know? No. Sharon said 10%, right? Joe says 3 or 4. I think in 3 or 4 hours, whatever, etc. Kim, you're actually right. Think about that. Think about that. These lower numbers are what is real. You would think they've had 30 hours to fight this out. Not only is this window so damn small, but so many people are interrupting and objecting that 80% of that time is cut out. You want to think it'd be like watching Curse of the Oak Island and have the announcer breaking into the show 10 times more than they already do. What if? Could it be? Would all the time in Curse of Oak Island. Think about that. And so you have to really try to understand and have some leniency for the teams and what's going on. I would even think on the other side, I mean, this has to be solved. Both sides should be heard. Both evidence should be heard. And so I just thought I'd let you know kind of how it goes, right? Right. Holy moly. Knew it was small. Wow. But 10%? No, I didn't say 10%. There were 700 possible hours to potentially argue. And the quality argue time probably was 10 minutes. 10% of 700 hours would be 70 hours. 1% would be 7 hours, right? 7 hours. 1/10 of 1% would be 7 times 60, 420, 42 minutes. But yet it was 1/3 of 1/10 of a percent, basically 1/30th of 1% of the time. That just doesn't seem right. That just doesn't seem right. Everybody needs their day in court, and everybody needs to be heard. And this is just what you don't hear in the media. This is just what they don't share and they don't talk about. Like, you know, in Wisconsin, right? Some of these people that are coming forward that worked in the election, that are material witnesses. Hey, Pip, haven't seen you in a while. That basically said, I saw fraud and this is horrible. And they basically become a certified witness. And Chris, you're right. They need provable evidence based on the scientific method, which is what we're doing. But even if you watch today, you know, there's been 4 assassination attempts in Wisconsin of people that were basically whistleblowers and blowing it and filed an affidavit and went on record saying we can't do this. And I shared video, right? I shared video of these assassination attempts. A Ring doorbell did it. And Jill, you're right. I can prove it. I can prove these weren't mailed. It's so easy to prove. But what they say is, well, you have to show us the proof so you can get allowed to go get the proof. It's back asswards. Back asswards, right? And so anyway, it's getting bad out there. Some people are really wonky. Hey, Janet Nunn, that's my crush. That's my crush out there on the net. Anyway, it's just nasty. It's just horrible. Don't give up. It is not over, regardless of what the news tells you. Regardless of what the news tell you, it's not over. I would encourage you. I'll put a link on my wall. I did a 3-hour interview last night. Had a lot of fun too. Talked to the host, asked me about Curse of Oak Island, all kinds of stuff, right? And so we had some fun, and we talked about the election, we talked about SCOTUS or whatever. But if you want to kind of get into the nitty gritty, and you know me, I have fun, right? Yes, Rudy is working on access to the ballots for forensic exams. Yes. Okay. Janet said, oh, gee whiz. Well, thank you, Janet. Anyway, so everybody's working on it. Everybody's redrafting their petitions, and that's what's going on. This is the process. But if you want to get nitty to it, I would encourage you listening to a podcast called The Red Pill. It's posted on my wall here. I did a 3-hour broadcast. It was actually pretty fun, right? And of course, you know me is, you know, I live in such a, Joanna says, thanks, Joanna. She said, great interview last night. It led me here. Thank you for joining me. All of you that have followed me for years and years and years know I can cut up and be goofy and whatever, because sometimes we're dealing with very hard topics that if we just didn't have some fun and lightness all the time, we'd all be crying. And especially in this scenario, right? We're all hurting, you know, regardless of what side of the side says, and you're right, this kind of makes you want to explode sometimes. And so that's kind of why I inject my stupid ass humor to it, whatever. But anyway, it's called The Red Pill. Look on my wall, look for it. You'll see it. I did a link. I'll post another one up here, just in a quick minute. You can watch it. But if you want a heavy dose of my sarcastic ass and some of these discussions about how did this work and how do you find the evidence and what can you do or stuff, you can get a 3-hour dose of me. Your ears may bleed afterwards, right? But because it was a podcast and not a right? So somebody can post up the link too, right? Because it's all over the place. Twitch has a version of it, and BitChute, and all these other ones. But I'll post another one here in a minute. But because it was a podcast, technically a video, a vlog, right, and pod, and it was not part of the stuff I'm having to do on regular TV, right? It was fun, and I just have some fun doing it. Anyway, I want to thank every one of you for joining me here. I'm going to fire back up Twitter again, right? I'm going to fire back up Twitter again and try it, even though day one back on, they already banned me once, but I got from it. But it's very informational. Had a lot of fun. I'll answer a lot of the questions that you were asking here today. We even talk about this military action and some of the stuff. But you'll get more information there. It just takes longer to do it. But I just wanted to say hi. I didn't even want to take these 31 and a half minutes. I did it. But you all have a very, very, very good evening. It's Saturday evening. I am going to have fish tacos, right? Fish tacos with beer. I'm going to have Lone Star beer, but I'm going to have fish tacos. And I'm going to pack those tacos with hot sauce and raw jalapenos. I love raw jalapenos. And here's a life hack, right? I guess I'm a wuss. Hey, Julia. And it's nice to be seen. Thank you. You got a package on the way to you. And thanks, Sharon, for joining. I appreciate it. Right. But I'm going to have hot peppers in it. And here's why, right? Because could you imagine me on drugs? I've never done cocaine or anything like that, but could you imagine me? I think I'd probably explode in my seat. Beef enchiladas. I love enchiladas. Anyway, so I'm going to do hot peppers. And here's why I do hot peppers. And this is a life hack I'll share with you, right? When you do peppers, the way your brain and body reacts to the capsicum, that's the hotness in it. That's what they make pepper spray out of. When you get that oil on your mouth, other than going, holy shit, right? And it gets burned, your mind actually does not know the difference between that burn, right? And a real burn by fire. And so your body kicks in real quick and your body excretes a natural morphine that kicks in real quick because it thinks you're being eaten up by fire. It's kind of like if a dog broke a leg and you'll hear them yelp a bit, but then they finally kind of get real mellow and they stop yelping and you wonder, how are they dealing with the pain? Well, that's the chemical that kicks in. And so I'm a pepperhead, right? And so what I do is if you get really manic and you eat peppers and burn yourself and get hot and sweat and whatever, what happens is it will bring you down and level, okay? If you're depressed and have the blues or overstressed and you can't relax, if you'll do the same pepper fix and get the heat, it will bring you up. And it's one of the only things in the world that does it absolutely natural, and that's why they call it a pepper head, right? And so I'm going to go get my pepper fix on, and somebody said they'd shit their pants for a week. It will clean you out if you're clogged up, but that's a good thing, right? And so I'm going to fish tacos, raw cabbage, raw lettuces, carrots, fresh tomatoes, guacamole, cilantro, a shitload of onions because I love onions on it, and hot peppers. And I do habanero sauce, and I do salsa and raw raw jalapenos. Anyway, that's what I'm gonna go do. So I'm gonna go get my pepper high on. I love you. I may come back later because I was threatening doing something about gemstones. I may do that. I don't know. I just wanted to come on. And yes, Mark, you're technically correct. Eat too much, you become a salad shooter. Anyway, love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.